gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Exhibition Inc. proudly brings to you their podcast champions of the world, the announcer man, Ron Anderson, the system-changing CEO, Dave Benard, the Exhibition podcasters. And as always, if you ain't down with that, we got 2 words for you.
Hey, if you haven't been listening, you better get started.
Well, okay, there we go. You see, Mark has been dying to bring wrestling to the Exhibition forever.
How did
and
you
honestly,
know that?
like, Ron, it's not that crazy. Like, the whole X thing, like, it does fit with wrestling, doesn't it? I mean, you're a wrestler.
Here we go. My history. Hey, I actually was a wrestler.
Okay.
Yeah, University of Calgary wrestling team.
No way.
Oh yeah.
How did you do? What was the record? Like,
I was like, I think I was like 4-0.
Yeah?
4-0, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is the cool thing with wrestling, they have weight class.
Yeah.
Do you remember which weight class you were in
yeah.
at that time? Like,
Yes, I did.
What
Yeah.
was it?
Under 130.
Okay.
130 and under.
Yeah.
And making weight was was that hardest thing about wrestling.
Sweatsuit or whatever they call those things.
The rubber suit.
Yeah.
And if truth be known, Hardy bar of X-Lax. I mean, there would be times.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine that I was in the 135, like walking around fully dressed.
Yeah.
Shoes on, shoes off, 135-ish.
Do you think you could, like, nowadays, you take a Zempic right before you're trying? Would that work?
I didn't like the rubber suit. I liked the X-Lax less.
Yeah.
So I think right now, I would just go in the seniors division, come as you are.
Okay. Well, see, and all this, like, this is the start of a new season of podcasts, and people have been dying for us to come back. Like, hey, they're going to talk about horses, but no, we're talking about wrestling and X-Lax.
Right.
And
We may mix in some hockey again. Rumor has it this used to be a hockey podcast.
It was a hockey podcast.
It was.
Right?
It was.
Maybe it can be again.
And in honor of the comeback, if this is a podcast comeback, in honor of that, the Flames won their home game last night.
That was a
did.
big game. And
Yeah.
actually,
Dusty Wolf with almost a shutout.
hey, and this is a great time because you know how we love shouting people out on the podcast, on the episodes, all that stuff. So last night's game was we had the silent auction that we ran at the Future Nova show.
Yes.
And Chester and Maggie Enos, they donated 4 tickets to that game last night. What a great game.
Serious,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the first period was a bit of a dud because I saw it was nothing after
Right.
1.
Yeah.
But then, but good game. Flames are good. They're better than they're supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super psychologist.
Shooting above their weight class. Like,
Sports psychologist Matt Brown must be working his magic over there.
yeah.
Is he fanning the Flames?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
Hey, before we go too far, I want to shout out and say hi to Eric, a.k.a. Gumby, over there in the corner. People can't see you right now. Here he is.
Hey,
yeah.
there he is right
Yeah.
there.
So,
I'm just hiding in the corner.
The technical magician.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got buttons to play with back here.
yeah.
So
I mean, people are getting a chance to see the exhibition set here for Exhibition TV, Exhibition Podcast, all the things. You know, we've shot some things here in the past, but we did some upgrades. You know, I'm pretty happy with the way things are going. Obviously, Eric plays a huge part in all the technology and the camera and the audio and all that good stuff. But what do you think, Ron? Like, it's a good set?
I mean, every time I come here, of course, I'm overwhelmed by product.
Yeah.
And once I get past that, but this is pretty upgrade. Compared to the earlier podcast,
Right.
this test podcast is bound to be a winner. The chair is better.
It's
The chairs are better.
Tracy got that. She
Really?
got that chair, yeah. And I said, well, get one that Ron will be happy with. I'm going to tell her. I'm going to let Tracy
Yeah.
know you approve.
Would you? Yeah.
Good chair. Yeah.
Not all chairs do my feet touch the ground when I'm in them.
Okay.
This one is right
That was
there.
just right.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. Well,
good
and
thing
the
we
fact
cut the
that
legs
we're...
off earlier, hey?
What's that?
Good thing we sawed the legs off.
Yeah.
I hope you get an electrical short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, the nice thing, too, is, of course, the video podcast. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So for this one, I mean, I feel like we don't have a lot of visuals, so it's not going to be a big deal. But later on,
I'm
like...
offended.
Well...
I'm offended.
Right. Can we get a close-up? Let's have a look at how
We
good
need a
Ron is
Ron.
looking
Hold
here.
it.
Like,
I mean, let's just go this way.
yeah.
This is the first time I came to a podcast and was told there was a dress code.
Okay. See, look at that. We got a close-up on you now.
All right.
You're looking
Look at
good.
there.
Yeah. You're
Well,
looking really
I got it. Might have overdressed. It's a flannel shirt, and you've got it room temperature in here. So
good. So our accountant now, who I don't think we've ever talked about before, but a lot of things have changed at the exhibition since we recorded our last podcast.
Yes, yes.
And, you know, the company line, like I think I'm allowed to say this. It's a podcast. We can say whatever we want. A lot of shit going on has become the company motto. Anyways, let me get back to the flannel shirt. Good friend of mine, Jerry. We used to call him Captain Obvious because he grew out like the wicked, like, you know, Captain Obvious beard
Yes.
from the commercials.
Oh,
you know
yes.
that guy?
Yes.
But he's our accountant and he's just amazing. But he plays hockey and he wears a flannel as his undershirt. The collar comes up. Sometimes it flips. Nobody does this, Ron. So you're wearing a hockey undershirt.
Does he have
right
a
now.
pocket protector?
He is an accountant, so you're right. It probably
He's got a pocket protector.
it's a 2-on-1, and he's like, "Hold on here, guys. We got to stop. We're gonna work some math here and just figure out the angles of the two." Okay, if you
you
move
go.
forward just a little bit, I'll make that.
Working some geometry into his math.
Rod, I want you to tell people about the fact that since we recorded our last podcast, you're back riding horses.
Is
Yeah.
this the second half of your riding career?
Well, yeah, it must be. I am. I'm
You
back
are.
competing. It's just a strange and exotic deal, and it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
It's partly I wanted to.
Yeah.
Haven't for a long time. I've sat in that chair and been an announcer, and a lot of people. I'll tell you one little quick story about it.
Yeah.
About made this decision. I was at a show, a cow horse show. And I'm riding around the hitching pen, and a young, very, very young trainer from Saskatchewan looked at me, and I had chaps on, and I kind of looked like I was going to participate, which he was accurate in assessing.
Yeah.
He said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?
You don't need
Are
that
you going to
announce.
show?" And he looked at me like incredulous, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try it." He said, "Holy cow." He said, "How come you're not up there?" And he pointed to where I usually am.
Yeah.
And he said, "How come you're down here?" And I said, "Well," I said, "I can still get on." And I said, "I just wanted a few of you young guys to know that a lot of what I've said up there
Yeah.
came from real life experience. And I wanted to show you that I actually can ride."
Well, yeah.
And it's...
And we know that because, you know, different reasons why and stuff. But even on the podcast, like I remember the Wayne Latimer episode where the two of you guys were just like, it was like, oh my goodness, you were boys in the sandbox again because, you know, living, going back, reminiscing about those times. But you were riding 2 years ago, and I can't remember specifically the horse, but whereas this year, like you had yourself a great horse. It was a good fit, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your horse.
Well, my horse, it's a horse. It's a mare by Call Me Mitch. It's a 4-year-old mare, Derby mare, and she's everything I hoped that she'd be. Because the reason I'm showing and my mindset about it is the most interesting mindset that I've ever had when I went to show. This is all about for me. Mm-hmm. I just want to do this. Yeah. I don't care if I win, lose, or beat anybody. I'm still competitive.
Yeah.
But I just want to go do it. I love doing it. And I like the horse. So I went and I searched. I looked for, nearly a year for a horse. Yeah. Just about a year. Found this horse, and she's seniors friendly. she's nice. She's very talented. And it's just, I have a lot of fun when I show her. So that's the whole
and
deal.
she's not an optical illusion, right? Like she's a large horse.
She is a large horse. I went to see her. And he said, "Well, I've got this such and such mare." He says, "I got this Call Me Mitch mare," and he said, "She's on the bigger side." He said, "She's on the bigger side," and he just kind of looked at me, and I'm on the ground, and I thought, "Oh, I guess he might think he's kind of a bigger guy, and he might think that most horses look kind of on the bigger side to me."
Yeah.
And he's right, but yeah, she is. It's not an optical illusion. I do carry a stool. And in the event that I can get on her about, I figure 4 times a day. The 5th time I need the stool.
Now, is it one of those collapsible stools that you can just use a drawstring and pull it up?
No, I'm
and
not
strap it
trying.
to you?
I'm not trying to hide this from anybody. No, if you come close to me when I'm getting on her, you can hear my knees. So kind of sounds like a goat eating a tin can.
I want to pay you a compliment because there's been a number of times, only not very many, less than 5, so count them on one hand, where I've watched someone showing their horse, and I get this thought like, well, that looks easy. That is something that I could do, because everybody knows I don't ride horses. But that's what I saw. Like I remember very specifically in Saskatchewan, we were out there for the Cowtown Classic cow horse show, and I was out filming with Danae, and I just saw you ride that horse, and it was just like, wow. Like I could sense your joy. The horse had the same feeling of joy, and you were just out cow horsing. And it, as much as you made it look easy, I know it's not easy, but you made it look easy. And I was like, wow, that's great job. So that's what I remember from last season. And I really thought you were in your happy place at that moment.
Well, thanks. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I recognize that my timing and my reflexes are not paramount to being in the open division, but it's just fun to be in the mix. And it's given me the rewards that I want to get. A lot of them are not in the show pen. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are just riding with the people in the cow horse community. Yeah. Just being part of that and just being in the kind of in the atmosphere of competition. And it's totally fun.
Well, now, of course, Marilyn crossed over into cow horse, and is that going back 3 years now that she's been doing that? Because
she is now a 3-year veteran of the cow horse. Yeah.
And so I figured, like, you know, like you were given tips, like, well, because she'd ask you, and I'm sure she didn't want to listen, because I know that Tracy wouldn't listen if Tracy decided to play hockey, and I was like, well, you should try this. She'd be like, no, that wouldn't work. And I'd want to show. So, like, have you been able to be like, okay, well, here, this is, watch me do it. Is that working for you at all?
I don't do the watch me do it.
No.
That's it. More along the lines of, she's actually pretty receptive to any kind of help she gets.
She's a great rider.
And so in the process, in the 3 years, I think she's maybe shined up some of the respect she has for some of my insights in the sport. Yeah. And I'll be very candid. I mean, we were riding yesterday, and both of us help one another. It's like that knowledgeable set of eyes on something. I can watch her doing something, and like she kind of books me in. She says, I got to ride. She says, I've been working on these things. I want you to watch me do them.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a critique.
Nice.
And so I'll be riding around, and she'll go, you need to do this. And she says, the reason you need to do this is that's what you told me to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing.
That's
and
awesome.
She says, you're not quite, so it's quite a bit of fun. So, there's been a couple of moments, one or two of which I won't forget, but they won't fit here in the podcast. It's best if we just leave them on the counter.
Man, you're wise.
Yeah, well, I'm getting a little wiser now. Getting a little wiser as it goes.
Well, if you're fine, I'd like to go back all the way to Exhibition 2023, because our last podcast, we did a handful of episodes leading into it. But if we go all the way back to 2023, like one of the things that was just not true. So we did 22, never done it before, complete chaos. And so now, I use the analogy of the duck on the water where everything looks fine, but underneath is like paddling 1,000,000 miles an hour. So you go into year 2. And you think maybe it's going to be a little bit easier. And maybe it was. But the chaos, like, it felt exactly the same, at least from my perspective, because the difference was between year 1 and year 2. It was like, well, now I should know better. But, like, some of the things that are still hard are just, like, and the reality is putting on a horse show is just really hard, right? We talked about that after year 1. But do you remember any perspective from that? Because I mean, that's going back a long time now, right?
It is, and it was kind of like to the credit of yourself and your help, you covered off a lot of things that happened in 2022.
Right.
But the horse show concept, you also added layers, and it's hard to foresee what's going to need attention.
And we were a bigger show from year 1 to year 2.
Exactly.
No.
The layers did what they were supposed to do. Yeah. They attracted more people. Yeah. The reputation of the first year exploded the actual, just the general attendance. Yeah. And anytime when it's a full house, it's a full house. And my recollections are that some of the parts that were obvious to people, they thought, oh, that's seamless.
Yeah.
And the rest of the part, like you say, the duck on the water. The other parts, you were patching it together and making it work so that everybody got the positive experience out of the exhibition show.
Well, and the thing that we did, so, it feels, because we did it again this year, it happened to the Future Nova, we'll talk about all that, but the thing that we added in 2023, one big thing was, of course, we had the green shootout, and then we also had the rookie shootout, and so we gave away 3 saddles, and that was a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, and the response is the resulting response of that.
Yeah.
And then the criteria, you would try to forecast the positive criteria for qualification, and you're hopeful that you have it all covered.
Yeah.
As it turned out, we'll just modify this. And it was very inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot to learn from it. And and I think that's, hopefully it's the strength of our show, is because we're learning, and you do something and you're like, that was good, but you know me, my mindset is yeah, that was good, but we're shooting good is the enemy of great. We're going to try and make it better. Doesn't always work, but no, we learned a lot from 23. The thing that happened is that we thought, okay, well, let's run a second show. And at that time, the only dates that were available was the very end of October. And we had plans for our Futurity show, and it was the Future Nova 2023. And it started off, it was what brought us onto the gates, and it was Ice Gate Run. Oh. So you weren't available to announce for that show.
I was at if I recollection, I'm pretty sure I was at
Cow Horse up in Pinoca.
Cow Horse
is the same weekend as the Canadian Futurity.
Canadian Futurity.
So
you and I were going to be hanging out there.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And it just was icy. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
Well, what happened was, if I recall correctly, so it rained and then it froze, and that created a thing of ice. But then it started to snow.
Yes.
On top of that, and it was just there was no way for horses in sliders to get safely from the barn to the arena. And that was the reason it was dangerous. The roads weren't great.
And Dave, that was when they were at home.
That's true. Yeah.
They couldn't get from the turnout to the barn or back and forth. And it was very, very, very spooky.
So, and that's it was great because we need to learn and have the skills to deal with these types of things. That kind of carried over into 2024. But, we didn't shy away from that. It was a tough experience, and we got through it. The support from the community was overwhelmingly amazing. A lot of people appreciated the fact that we made the call that for horse safety, people safety, all that stuff, and so we made that decision. But it was then, from out of that, the Exhibition Inc. as a company came to be. And it's in my mind, it's the Exhibition Inc. has always been there. But the exhibition was, first and foremost, it was a horse show, and then it was well, there's something more here. There's something to grow into. And so part of that was building the team. And that's when, of course, Eric there came back at the end of 2023, joined in on the team. We added Pearl Abley to the team. And so we were doing some different work where we wanted to try some things. And through that work, and actually through the idea and support of Shauna Saperja, we talked about well, hey, we want to create the Stallion program because we believe this. And I just kind of shared some ideas of things that we had seen and learned and stuff. And Shauna was like, Dave, stop everything that you're doing and start that today. And it was, I love it when those moments happen. I for the rest of my life, I will remember Shauna telling me, and it was very unselfish of her because some of the work that we were doing at that time was around doing some different partnerships with Shauna and stuff that we were all very excited about. But she said, no, that's the most important thing. And so we got started. So we decided to create a stallion auction. So I don't know, are you up to speed with sort of what happened with all that?
At arm's length, I've been keeping up a little bit. I look at I've looked and kind of kept somewhat track of the subscribed stallions, how it turns out, and subsequent deal. Yeah. I have no idea what the expectations are or what shall we say, the future target is. Yeah. But I saw it happen, saw it unfold, and it's quite a bit like what has happened with most of the decisions that Exhibition Inc. has made. Mm-hmm. So back to your future That's a positive thing.
Yes,
and, I'm trying to quit saying
just call it
HD2.
a spade.
You got a lot of shit going on.
I'm trying to not to call it HD2.
Yeah.
You know, I'm stuck in my rut. So, but you made the call, like you said, for Future Nova, you made the call about too icy to host the show because of, here's the reasons.
Yeah.
As you just stated. Those were reasons the community, the reining horse community, and the horse community in large, looks at that and goes, boy, that's a soundly based decision. That probably hurt management, both financially and emotionally, if you will, because you're pumped, primed, and ready to try to do this right in 2023. And it was a year that really wasn't going your way.
Well,
So you made that call. Well, I think that your stallion auction, I mean, everybody's going to have a view of that. Everybody has an opinion because they're free.
Right.
So the fact is, it's soundly based. Like the concept. The concept is there. So, that's kind of where and
it went really well, I think, like from the first one. And, I'd like to think, and not everybody's heard the props, that having someone like Pearl Abley on the team, because her parents have Bubba Spook's Big Bang, they're in that, and actually some of the ideas even before Pearl joined us, because I do like to ask lots of questions. And Giselle had made it very clear to us, to me, you cannot charge stallion owners any more money. Because in the stallion game right now, when we look south of the border at the big shows and they're paying for all that big money, they're squeezing out the small Canadian breeder. And so what we needed to create was like, how do we have a program that fits and works with? And lucky for us, NARS already set the example, the North American Reining Stakes, of what that can look like. And there are probably others out there as well. But to me, that was like, it just worked. And all it required was that a stallion owner donate a breeding to an auction. Those auctions get sold now in prospects. And the thing that was tricky about it is that it takes time. Of course, like last year's auction, the earliest that offspring directly from that can compete is going to be 2028.
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of a now guy. So we kick-started the program and said, all right, let's just start talking about the reining stakes now. And so, that might have been a little bit ambitious as far as paying out money to the program in the way that we did this year. But honestly, Ron, like that's how we dive in, right?
If I understand this correctly, is that the funds, the money that you achieved or gathered together from the stallion auctions, that money is paid out in the stallion stakes classes.
Exactly.
Maturity, Derby, which is 4, 5, 6, 7, or a separate 4-year-old or whatever, however it unfolds. Yeah. So that's correct, right?
That's the idea, and it's not easy math. Like it's not like there are other programs out there. I'm thinking of one. I don't need to bother naming it or whatever it is, but they do an auction. They take a pile of money. The association keeps a small percentage of it to help with their administrative work and all that. But then that money goes into one class, one show. It gets paid out. That's the end of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is a program that continues on. So like if you were to take all of the revenue generated from that auction or from those nominations and pay it out as a 3-year-old, well, there's nothing left to pay them as 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, whatever it is, right? So we're building a program. The intention is to have a phenomenal program similar to like the hole that was left from the Canadian Supreme. We need to fill that. And to me, right now, the only way to have quality shows where American stallions, where the prospects of those stallions and the owners and the riders, whatever it is, can earn the money, that money has to come directly from the pockets of the people that either enter that class, and now those class fees are ridiculous, or you're looking to get sponsors, which generally tends to come directly from the community or the people within it, right? So this is a way to try to generate revenue and create a pile of money so that that breeding program can exist and the aged classes can exist where the purses can start to be comparable to what we see south of the border, but not have to have entry fees that are off the chart. Does that make sense?
Parts of it do to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you asked me a question.
Yeah.
Parts of it do make sense to me. The first thing, I got to applaud the fact that hinging it on stallion subscription.
Right.
I mean, I had a conversation here not 10 days ago with someone who's considering this, and there's a big explosion right now, say, for example, in the team roping fraternities and the barrel horse fraternities of subscribed stallions. You've undoubtedly seen, I think it's the Royal Crown, yada, 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 and there's probably 2 or 3 more Canadian Breeders Barrel Horse Stakes, and I'll get that wrong, but I should get it right. But
We know what you're talking about.
yeah, those programs, they're stallion subscription programs. They're prevailing upon stallions who are not used to subscribing in that fashion, you know, with the breeding cost. I mean, they're asking $12,000, $20,000 to subscribe this stallion. And someone in the conversation I was having with this person, they said, well, we'll just get them to subscribe.
Yeah.
And I said, before you jump out there and go running at this headlong, think about the stallions you want involved in this. Like, just, you don't have to name names, but think about the stallions or the category of stallions you'd like to have involved in this program to make it really a noteworthy program.
Yeah.
And ask those stallion owners what else they've had to subscribe to.
No.
How many, I mean, what it is, it's, you're standing a stallion and you're getting taxed to death.
It is.
You might as well be in the oil and gas business in Alberta.
Yeah.
So that's just, you know, so I applaud that idea.
Well, and so what I heard loud and clear from Giselle, it was another one of those conversations. You know, I talk a lot, so I've had a lot of conversations, but she just said, Dave, we can't pay any more money. That's not the way to do it. And it's important to do the auction side of things, because the difference is, as much as they're donating that breeding, and now we're taking the proceeds from that sale, the auction, it puts a prospect on the ground that is in the game. Whereas like a lot of these breeding programs where the owners are just, they're putting out the money, the 10, 12, 20, whatever it is.
Right.
And
On the hope that
someone
who breeds to their stallion will enroll it in that program.
So if I were to run the numbers, because I'm a numbers guy and so are you, the odds, Ron, of that investment. And so if you can afford it, great. Like if your pockets are so deep and you want to play in that game, great. But otherwise, we need a different way. And this is the different way. There are other things too. Like one of the things I hope we're going to get to do in the near future is start to have conversations with the big U.S. stallion stations that are hosting, you know, or representing some of the most incredible stallions in the reining industry. I want to talk to them and find out, like I would love, we had a few and we want to get more of those big studs to participate. And you know, like the benefit to them is possibly that now if we build our TXRS program and we have those classes, and now as a Canadian competitor, as a non-pro or as an owner who wants to have an aged horse, it's going to be important to them that it has that TXRS stamp to it. On that, you know, when they're buying a 2 or 3-year-old or whatever it is, like that's going to take time. Eventually we can build that. If we build that, yes. Now it'll be important for those bigger studs to be a part of our program. That's not the biggest reason, Ron. If they want to support the goal that we have of creating this great opportunity here in Canada, 'cause there's incredible opportunities across the border, but I don't know if they understand, because of the dollars and cents and the way that the NRHA operates as far as Canadian earnings and all of these different things. It really will expand the game for the NRHA here in Western Canada if we can be successful. And for them to donate a breeding to us would be huge.
Explain that. How will it affect the NRHA?
Just as far as like they're building a global brand. Like they want to have, like when I talk to the NRHA, when I'm applying to a show or whatever it is, like they're not focused on Oklahoma. Right? They're looking at it as a global industry. But if you look at the economics of how challenging it is here in Canada to run a big show, like the dollars and cents of it, where like, so take for example, the leveling of age class 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
It's based on the biggest qualification of getting out of 1, 2, 3, 4 is your previous year's earnings, right?
Yep.
When you have a small Canadian show, you could win all of them, and you're still not going to level out
Right.
of that.
Right.
So-
If that's your only platform of competition. Yeah.
And I'm giving that as an example of an indicator of the economics, the difference between what is happening south of the border and what is happening up here. And that's changed in a hurry.
Yeah. My question on all of this, it's numbers.
Yeah.
It's volume. It's demographic numbers.
Right.
And excuse me, that to me that's a difficulty. Is we have small numbers, and so that was why I'm very curious about your views on the how the NRHA is going to perceive that the shall we say the Canadian situation, or for that matter, the international situation. The one international situation that they pay attention to is Italy.
Of course. Yeah.
Because it's huge money.
Yeah.
Another up and comer, Brazil. Once again, it's the Italy's a long time. I mean, that's just so that it's our numbers.
Yeah, and I don't know. I like your question, and it's going to challenge me to look into the numbers. But like, for example, 100X ran a show in Paris this year, and I don't know if you're following what 100X is doing with their shows, but it's a big deal, right? There's big deal shows right now, and 100X is a part of them, and they chose to have one in Paris. But I think for us as in Western Canada, being home of Calgary, throw out the name the Calgary Stampede. There is an opportunity for us to start to increase and have a bigger footprint. But I'm just telling you, like, under the way that we do it right now, that's not going to happen. And maybe it doesn't need to happen. I don't know. But there have been, like, if we go back to the Canadian Supreme Breeders who used to be a part of that game and whatever that was, stallion owners and all of those things, that model, it expired. And that was part of the reason that the Canadian Supreme went away. But there's a new model that's out there. And that's what we need to do. We need to understand it, figure it out. We need to get the support of the industry. And then if we can, make it work. And, like in the end, like if we try that and it isn't successful for whatever reason, either we're not good at it or the idea wasn't sound or whatever it is, I'm okay with that. But I do feel like it's worth a try. But to let it to just go away, I don't think that's acceptable. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. So curiously, like the 100X is a very good example. I mean, they've gone international. Are you clear, or is their funding very transparent to you?
I haven't tried to look into it. But they're backed by big money. I would say that.
Just as yeah. There's some big backup there.
Yeah.
So the question always has been, I mean, it's not about getting paid, when you win. It's about the longevity or the circumstance. It is a stallion subscription program. Is it not?
Well, part of it is based on that, yes. And in that situation there, like that's a paid subscription.
Yes.
Right? Whereas like they ended up partnering with the NARS program, which is the stallion auction side of things. So they kind of bridged two together.
But as NARS is still separate though.
Oh yeah, the classes.
That's like they're like a competition held in conjunction with the 100X.
Well, and I think what happens, and I don't know this to be true, so we'd have to fact check this, right? But if you just look at the numbers who can participate into that game of the 100X nomination classes where you're paying for huge money, but you still need to run a horse show. Yeah. And that's part of the thing is like that we deal with too, is like, well, you want to have an aged event happening, but you also still have, in order to be successful, you need to run a horse show. And I feel like I saw that specifically in the cutting world, where back in the day, of course, Canadian Supreme could function as an aged event,
right?
And both within the cow horse and the reining as a show, but they didn't have to run a horse show. But when that was separated, and there was, they tried to specifically, I'm thinking of when the cutting show ran originally without the Supreme part of it, quickly realized like, well, we need more people, we need more horses, butts in the stands, whatever it is, right? Maybe that's why 100X, recognized like, hey, running concurrent with NARS made sense. I don't know the answers to these questions, but
they don't run. Do they run a horse show?
I'm going to say they do. I'll have to go back and look.
I think we're separating horse shows as weekend classes.
Well, even the NRHA runs a horse show now. Like at the futurity that's coming up in early December here.
Yes.
Right. They have their affiliate champions,
Right.
world championship,
Right.
whatever that is, where people qualified all year long. Like that's huge now. That's a huge part of
Yes.
how many horses are coming to Oklahoma to be there and a part of the excitement. Like it matters. Like those non-pros, greens, rookies, it's a huge part of the industry. You need both.
Sometimes I look at that and I think the NRHA, like the NCHA, has two hats to wear. Limited aged event hat
Yeah.
and the weekend show people. So if you're a weekend show person and you aren't a limited aged event participant, you could sometimes feel like a second-class citizen because it used to be. I mean, the NRHA is really, really changing because there are other events that are far bigger than the Oklahoma Futurity, where it used to be the big dog in the park.
Yeah. They still consider themselves a Super Bowl of
Well, they
of
can
the
consider themselves whatever they want, but the facts are the facts. Let's not
understand.
pull any punches.
Are you spitting facts over there?
You're damn right I'm spitting facts. You talk to the major fraternities, you talk to the major trainers,
Yeah.
and they'll tell you, Oklahoma's not the big deal that it was.
Yeah.
It is a big deal, and I'm not trying to take it away, but there's a lot of competition. So anyway,
Yeah.
so what they did, and right thinking, I believe, is they took and hosted the affiliate championships in conjunction with the fraternity. The fraternity had an atmosphere and a flavor, and it was a representative of the NRHA celebration of reining horses. And they took all the weekend people and they said, come on down.
Yeah.
That's a great, that was smart thinking.
I think it's awesome. And I think you see that when you look at the big shows, like even Run for a Million, right? The original Run for a Million, it was the one class, and now they run it as a horse show. It needs to. You have to. Like, and ultimately too, like the futurity horses, like they're creating the horses of the non-pros and of the rookies and the greens moving forward. So it's all, I believe the word is symbiotic. Is that's the relationship?
I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ideas behind, the exhibition reining stakes program, the stallion auction. If it's a success, then I feel like there's other opportunities to grow from that. So that came about as part of the Exhibition Inc. Exhibition TV became a thing, Ron, and that has been a very, very important thing. So if you're watching, or you could be listening, and if you're listening, go over to YouTube and find this episode. But what we did was for years we've been live streaming. I mean, since 2012 is when I think we started streaming our first event. So we're a dozen years of live streaming. But we used to always, as HD2, we would live stream to our 3 separate industries that we were covering, disciplines. So we had our reining, our cutting, and our cow horse individual channels. And to be honest, like that was a limitation of Dave's thinking, because I didn't realize that we could have been doing that all through one channel. I think we maybe would have started that a long time ago. But now we realize, yes, on a weekend where we're working for all 3 disciplines, and this happens, at the same time, those live streams can all be going to Exhibition TV. We're hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers, Ron, and we're very darn close.
All right.
So if you're watching here right now, there's a button right there to subscribe. That helps us, in our opinion. It also helps the viewer, because if you've subscribed, whether you have the YouTube app on your phone or if you got your smart TV connected to YouTube and you've logged in, you log in with your Google account. So everybody has a Gmail Google account.
Everybody's got a Gmail account.
Yeah, I mean, even us now. I used to just be the Apple guy.
I noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
The Exhibition Inc.gmail.com.
Sure. Yeah. There's a bunch of, and we have exhibition reining at Gmail. There's a reason we're doing that. Like some people say, like, oh, in order to be a professional business, you need to have your own domain. Because forever it was davidhd2.ca, markethd2.ca. We have that. The honest, there's filters that email's a mess. I don't want to get into that. That's
We love email.
But the reality is that Gmail, if I send someone who has a Gmail account an email from a Gmail account, it just works better, Ron.
Docs. Google Docs.
Yeah.
It's so shareable. I agree with that. I will tell you that I think the exhibition TV deal is like, it's primo.
Yeah.
As you well know, if I'm not a big webcast watcher,
Professional.
there's one person that is in my house. And Marilyn is like, I mean, she can find the webcast of some place that's, I mean, underwater basket weaving. If they're webcasting it, and she'll look for it and find it.
Yeah.
Exhibition TV has made it so easy to find and watch equine events.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like one-stop shopping. It's one clearance house.
Yeah.
It's one place, like right there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Go there and you'll find what you wanted to look for. Other shows that use a different broadcaster, sometimes it's really tricky to find them.
Yeah.
It's hard unless they have a go-to button on their home page, which a lot of them don't. And if they do, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's troublesome. So you're trying to watch an event, and exhibition TV, I mean, that's a home run deal.
We're very happy with it, and I
Yeah.
truly appreciate the props that you're giving us right now. And I thank
good
Eric,
job, Gumby.
for all of his work. I mean, he's in charge of Exhibition TV. This podcast is going there now.
Yeah.
There are other things that we can do, and getting to that 1,000 subscribers, that tells Google, owns YouTube, hey, these guys are legit. They unlock a bunch of capacities for us. So it's actually really important. So we hope that we're getting really close. Like we're like in the 800s or whatever it is. So let's kick us over 1,000 and that'll be super helpful. So yeah.
Well, hey, Gumby, how did I know that I was giving a little shout out to you and a little pat on the back? Huh?
Oh, I appreciate it. Ron.
Hey, well, it's a good deal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it too. I mean, because I'm often off somewhere else and I got to see what's going on. I just pull up my phone and there it is. I find what we're on, and we let people go back and watch. So, so that happened through the auction. We started the exhibition club, which, that is as exciting as the Stallion and Stakes program is, equally as exciting for us, Exhibition TV, equally as exciting for us, the exhibition club. And we didn't get everywhere that we wanted to with this year, but as we tried to run our first spring equinox show, what we actually did with that one is we were paying out the money that we had dedicated to the Future Nova from the year before. Yeah. So we took that opportunity. So we paid out some really nice 4-year-old added money to that aged class. But then we also took the opportunity to run our first ever TXRS classes for our 5 to 7-year-olds. So we made it a big deal. It was really early. It was it was that first weekend in April, and the snow came down, and it was total chaos. But it wasn't the dangerous ice that we had in the fall, but it was complicated.
It was a little wet and a little mucky when things started to thaw.
Not for those of you that are like me and you have a firm grasp of the obvious, and you take a look at the Western Canadian show scene, and you look, when is the first show of anything in Western Canada? When is the first show?
I don't know.
End of April. End of April.
Yeah.
For as long as I can recall, the end of April, there's a show. I believe it's a cow horse show held in.
Are you telling me that global warming is not a thing? Like we can't start sooner?
It's not something that you can rely on, obviously. But yeah, it was just. I don't think it was wrong. It was just like
again, that was the weekend that was available.
It is. And there was once again. Take the obvious. I wonder why it was available. No, I just thought to point that out. But anyway, this is like having a bad conscience.
I love it when people get to see how you help advise us on. Like, I have this idea, Dave. That's a bad idea. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it.
Well, we're doing it anyway.
But the fact is, you went ahead, you did it, and
we'll do it again.
Oh, we're going to have some bigger challenges.
Sure.
Are they insurmountable? No.
Yeah.
And some days it's going to work out, or some years, maybe once in 5, it'll happen. So it's hard.
Well,
by then you'll have the leverage to have a better date.
And the thing is like, if we go on to 24, because I mean, man, that was a big year. Like we did so much stuff, and we've learned so much this year. If we knew planning for 23 what we know now, I think the planning would have looked different for that show. You know, and to your point, like with the obvious, there are other things too. But you know, once I got to tell the funny story, because as much as the snow was a bit of a problem, so we show up on Wednesday, and Dave Hansma, who we love, Claire's Home Agriplex, greatest thing that could have ever happened to the exhibition. Like none of this is possible without them. No. But his traditional Wednesday booking that first week in April is this cow show.
Oh yeah.
So we're there, and we find out that the cows are going to be gone. Well, it's bigger than expected. The cows are staying longer than expected. And now the reiners are going to be starting to arrive, and there's cows in the stalls. And this is, I know, like, I'm just like, oh my God. And Dave was actually showing signs of stress. Like he's unflappable. Yeah. But I'm really? Like, well, if
I'm listening now.
I'm like, if he's stressed, I'm like, this is bad. Like we're not.
If Dave's got his shirt tail on fire, if Dave Hansman's got his shirt tail on fire, there's some shit going on.
Yeah. So we're in one. As if we were to go into the hockey podcast world, that's what happens when it's getting Western in the hockey world. You're in one. So we're in one, right? And so anyhow. One of the first groups to show up was the Huel barn, and so they were setting up on their stalls, and I'm down there and I'm having a conversation with Tori Nelson. We're about halfway down there at the far end. There's like an opening on the one way, and all of a sudden, like something's going crazy. Like there's something moving down there. Can't really see. It's a bit of a silhouette, but it's not good. And it's this like big cow, and the owner's like on the end of a little leash. Well, the next thing you know, it's deciding that it's going to run through the barn and go out the other end. Of course, there's Tori up against the wall. I mean, this wasn't a small cow, Rod. Like this thing was big. Maybe bigger because it's all fluffed up or whatever. So anyways.
It's probably big.
It was big, yeah. I definitely had never had anything that big run at me before. But Tori didn't panic as much as I did. But anyways, it didn't hit us. And, you know, as it turned out, it was actually maybe a blessing. I'm going to say that it is because, you know, of course, when the reiners arrived and they see the cows, they're not sure how their horses are going to react. It wasn't a problem, Ron. It really wasn't. So as we start to look at the possibility of going to something like the Canadian Supreme, where, again, we're asking the reining horses to be around cows and all that.
So in actual fact, did you pass it off and say, well, it's part of my conditioning program?
It was a training program.
I asked if some of the people could stay over with their cows.
It's exactly what I did. Not to. But it was fun. But that's how you learn things, right? You mistake it. And so I have to say, I can honestly say that PTSD is a term that is applicable to this, because if you remember Rockgate from the 2022 exhibition, where we had all the stones in the stalls. That was traumatic, Ron. Yeah. That was like, that could have been the end of the exhibition right then and there. Yeah. And now I'm there and I'm like, now we got the cows. We had Rockgate, we had Icegate, we got Cowgate, and this is going to be the end. But I'll tell you what, the patience and the acceptance of the reiners who showed up, I'm going to tell you that nobody got mad. They were kind of like, wonder how this is going to go. I don't really like this, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, wow.
I can tell you that was Wednesday. By Thursday, the cows were forgotten.
Yeah.
It's like they weren't there, and that makes me really happy.
Well, I think that's just that's absolutely a kudo to how you guys handle flexibility. And
like Gumby, flexible.
Reining, like Mr. Gumby. It's that ability, and the reiners now understand totally and 100% trust is that you've got their interest at heart. So that you can slip, you can fall, you can flounder, you can make some judgment errors. They're going to be, but they'll be better by tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, all
make the best of it
that.
too. You know, like that's what we're committed to. It's like we won't be perfect. We'll make lots of mistakes, but we'll react to those mistakes. We'll try to make the best of it. We've done a lot of that. It
goes back really to your philosophy that you stated about the reining stakes.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is create a better, bigger platform for Canadian reiners. Well, hey, on the way up the ladder, there's going to be some slippage.
Yeah.
But none of it's insurmountable. An occasional cow,
Some stones.
some rocks. It's just regular gravel.
Yeah. And stuff that you'd never plan for. But one of the things that we did plan for at the Equinox, because we were only going to show in the one arena. We've always had the privilege of 2 arenas,
Right.
but the numbers weren't going to justify 2 arenas. But what I chose to do is we ran the Green Rainers at the end of the day after the aged event. I've never seen this happen before, but I thought, you know what? We don't want to run our aged classes in the middle of the night, and I don't know how many people are coming to this show. So I made the schedule, and I thought if I need to, I will adjust and move it ahead of time, because we wanted our feature classes to be those primetime classes. But at the end of it, I think it was on the Friday night, and I was, because if people don't know this, running horse shows is hard. If I said that, it can be, I would like to think when I'm there at the show, I'm not showing the stress, but I know my team, they know me well, and they can see that it's really stressful. And I was worried. I was like, you got the snow and you got the cows. I'm like, this is a bad idea. It's the first week of April. Nobody's having a good time. And somebody stops me and is like, Dave, this is the best horse show I've ever been to. And I'm like, how can that be? This horse show is terrible. We have nothing but problems. But they were serious. And I was like, wow, okay. So let me then go down at the end of the day, and now the Green Rainer class is starting, and talk to the Green Rainers. And the smiles.
Oh, yeah.
And the happiness.
Yeah.
It was pure joy. It didn't extend out of the hitching area or whatever it was. And I was like, wow, something really good is happening here. Ended up having a conversation with their judges, husband and wife team that came to that show. They were amazing. And I said, yeah, we just chose to do this. And they told me, and they've been to a lot of horse shows, they said, I've never seen anyone do that before, put the Green Rainers at the end of the day. And they said, that was a great idea. And in that scenario, with that one arena, I truly believe that it was a really cool decision. Because what the Greens told me too is like, the pressure's off, the rest of the show is done. Now we can just come out, relax in the evening, do our thing. So anyways, something we tried. Sometimes it falls, but in that case, it worked out great.
Well, in a 2 arena format,
Yeah.
they'd have been across the street.
Yeah.
Here, they're in the big pen, and they're tagging in right after the limited age events, after the big deal.
Yeah.
What's supposed to be the big deal?
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Don't go home yet, folks. Hold your chair. And there's the Green Rainers.
Yeah.
So they're kind of in the same. They've been upped.
Yeah.
They've been brought up a little bit.
Yeah, you got to try different things, and you don't know until they try. And the same thing is still true. Is Dave is definitely still horse show dumb, and he's willing to try things that he shouldn't. And again, I appreciate the support and the kindness that we get from just the whole industry. It still feels exactly the same way, and that's cool, because as we go into next year, Ron, we're not slowing down. We're trying bigger and better things.
Well,
but, yeah.
One more thought. I just had this thought.
Yeah.
I'm having a lot of thoughts now.
Hamster spinning.
Yeah, it may be the coffee.
Can we get a close-up of the hamsters going?
Yeah, woo, now. But remember when we talked about the inception of the exhibition? Mm-hmm. And we talked about who's it for?
Right.
Well, it's for the non-pros, the Green Rainers. We took a look, and always in the one thing we always agreed on was who needs the platform? Who needs this platform?
Yeah.
It's not really about the open riders and the trainers. Mm-hmm. It's about the people that populate the horse show.
Yeah.
And look at what has happened to the Green Rainer world.
Yeah.
After three saddles in 2023.
Yeah.
Now you've got Green Rainers at Future Nova or at the Equinox that are just like living the dream.
Yeah.
And those it pays dividends, Dave, down the road.
But I think this is a nice segue to what you're saying as far as to me, I'd go back to that symbiotic relationship where, the open rider and the trainers and the owners who have those expensive breeding horses, whatever it is, and then the non-pro green rookies that actually are also super. we have to do what's best for both. And if you forget one or the other, you're going to be generally in trouble. But there was the lesson that was coming a little further down the road, and that was our plans for the exhibition. They went sideways. Something that we have to do as an episode at some point in time, Ron, is we have to talk about the Strangles situation. That, to me, I was told not to talk about it at the time of when we were dealing with numbers. I had recorded a message that even just used the word, and someone's like, don't say it. Because we were in the thick of it, Ron. Strangles did have a huge impact on the reining industry here this year.
Yeah.
And people may not know that because people weren't talking about it. I think everybody knows that. What I didn't know it even, I had never even heard the term before because I'm horse show dumb. But our numbers were already down, and the writing was on the wall that the numbers could go down further. That was the thing. When Jasper caught on fire and all of that smoke blew down the valley and then came right into Calgary, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, if we're going to use the term, where it was no longer safe or possible to run the exhibition the way that people came to love the exhibition. And again, the decision was made, okay, we're going to have to make a postponement. And we did that. And that was like 10 times harder than the decision with Ice Skate at the Future Nova the year before. A lot of people didn't understand. They can be like, hey, I went out in my backyard. There's no smoke there. I mean, part of that is because the message that we were delivering was specific to the smoke situation, not the entire thing.
Right. And when you made the call, you have to make the call before people load up.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, here's the deal. It's
Coming
time
from a long way.
before people load up.
Yeah.
You got to tell them, hey, here's what we're forecasting. Here's what we got to do.
Yeah.
And in the background, you've got a word you can't say. You can't say Strangles. You can't say, and such a barn has been closed as a result of that. And there's so many but like you say, that's a whole episode, and you could deal with that later. But
I want to do it in the off season. That's the right time to do it, right?
Oh, totally.
When people aren't dealing with it in the wintertime.
Well, yeah. And it's not necessarily, you're not dealing with it in the winter. But people aren't talking about it in the winter, just like they're not talking about it in the summer.
Yeah.
So the fact is, and that's why it does spread. You know,
I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough. And I would guess that there's a lot of people out there who don't understand it. And that's why I'd like to do an episode.
Totally, they don't.
And start to build that education.
And we'll bring a vet. I would suggest you get a veterinarian to come and give you the stats. You know, the stats or the whole surrounding thing about the contagion and that type of thing. And then also deal with the culture.
Right.
The equine culture approach to Strangles.
Yeah.
But anyway, but I think you made the call on the smoke. You had to make it early enough before they loaded their horses.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, 2 days before it's supposed to start, it's clear.
Yeah. And that's tough. So what we learned, though, so I don't even remember how much you and I have talked about, like sort of what happened from that. I feel like we've chatted a little bit about it, and I just can't wait to get your perspective now on it. But I had some people call me, one person in particular, and just be like, Dave, can you still just run a show? And I was pretty beat up at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you and I had been in quite a bit of communication back and forth.
Yeah. And it was like, I don't know if I can. And I talked to a couple of other people, and I said, hey, should I still run a show? So at that point in time, the idea was that we would run an NRHA show, but it would just be smaller. So we'd push all of our age and all of our big money, the Jack Carter Open, all that. That's going to go to the fall, but we can still run a small ancillary show that weekend. I got some feedback that was a really bad idea. And the reason that feedback came to me was, what was explained to me was that now I'm running a horse show that doesn't make it financially viable for an open rider to come, leave their barn where they're getting paid to ride their clients' horses, to come to a show where there's basically no added money and it's time away from that experience. And I don't understand all of that, but I'm like, I take the feedback because that's what I do. And so I talked to a couple of people, and I thought, okay, let's not run an NRHA show. And it was also communicated to me that, because I was going to run that show, that client's non-pros want to come. and it was putting that person into an uncomfortable situation. And I'm like, I understand that. That makes sense. And so in my mind right then and there, I was prepared to say, yep, bad idea. Thought it was a good idea, bad idea. Not going to do it. But then a person said to me, like, can you do it without the NRHA? And so I phoned a couple of trainers and I said, hey, if we run this show, we'll call it a club show. Will you still come? We'll still come. Okay, that's reasonable. This is not an NRHA show. Now this becomes the exhibition club show. I had 115 horses come, Ron. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. The people who came and to give credit to the people who said to me, do it anyways. They said, Dave, we just love our horses and we love the community. We love your shows. We took the time off of work. It's already on our schedule. We'll come anyways. And they came, Ron. I got goosebumps right now. It truly was awesome. Can you reflect on, because you're a trainer, you understand that. Like, what is the economics of it? Like, would it have been wrong to have done a small NRHA show in that situation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first thing that come to mind is if you've got customers and they want to go somewhere, you better check how you're getting your paycheck. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's just basic. I think if your customers want to do something, you have to evaluate how come you're doing what you're doing. Meaning you're a horse trainer. Yeah. You're riding this horse and that horse and you're coaching this person and you give lessons to the public and you've got a clientele base. Your clientele, you've got a busload who want to go somewhere and you're going, well, it's just not economically viable.
Right.
Well, what if that busload of clients waves goodbye to you? Mm-hmm. Kind of goes, well, I don't understand this. We're paying his way, that trainer's way. So I think that you really have to look at that. Like, I think that's possibly that's one of the egotistical parts of horse trainers that's maybe not that flattering.
Yeah.
Is the fact that if it's not to their benefit, why would they go? They, individual.
Yeah.
One thing you notice, Dave, you've been forced into following social media a lot more, haven't you?
I begrudgingly go on a lot more than I would, which would be none.
Do you listen at all to Along for the Ride?
I love Along for the Ride.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you listened to Andre Fapani's messages? Have you seen Andre Fapani? He's got a publicist. And he responds to all his customers' horses. When he's riding a horse for Archese, when he's riding a horse for XCS, whoever, it's acknowledged publicly. And he thanks them publicly. Mm-hmm. What do you think he's doing, Dave? He's paying the bills.
Yeah.
He interviewed Adon Banuelos. Have you heard that?
Is that his most recent episode?
I believe it might be.
Okay, because I haven't listened to his most recent one. It's on.
Give it a listen. It's just
on my list.
I don't think I've listened to it all, but Adon Banuelos is they're kind of buddies now because for a lot of different reasons. But
is he from the cow horse community?
Adon?
Yeah.
No, Adon is a cutter.
Okay.
Adon Banuelos is a cutting horse.
I feel like
trainer.
I saw that in the title.
Yeah.
That he was.
Adon Banuelos is probably one of the identifiable meteoric players in the cutting horse. I don't know. He's like mid-30s or something like this. He's $6 or $7 million. Andre, just to give you a magnitude, Andre Fapani asked him, well, how many horses do you have in training? And Adon kind of dodged the question. Like, not really, but he said, I don't, he didn't give a number, but he said, my help told me that a couple of weeks ago, he said, I rode 73 horses.
Wow.
In a day. And Andrea said, I understand. He said, you guys don't ride your horses, don't have to work your horses as long as we do, and I've been to your place. He says, you've got amazing help.
Yeah.
You know, amazing. But that's how many horses he's dealing with. But he said himself, and Andrea asked him about trying to phone him and trying to get a hold of him. Adon has a person who looks after customer information, talking to the customer about their individual horse, passing on what Adon has, his thoughts on it.
Yeah.
That, the reason I bring that up is that's how the upper echelon are treating it.
Okay.
They're looking after their business. Who's their business? Non-pros.
Yeah.
Writing the checks. So they're not just being cavalier about it. They've obviously decided that that's a very important communication thing. And they don't have personal time to do it. So that's the first thing I get from when a trainer says, well, I'm not going to go because it's not viable.
Yeah.
Well, what would make it viable?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm familiar enough with the NRHA payouts. And I don't think that you could pay for a stall if you won the Open. Is that? I mean, you're far more familiar with the payouts.
Right.
Excuse me. But that's kind of like economically viable. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's a really interesting thing. And I mean, we had a guest on the podcast who kind of went down the aged horse, more of the, that side of things where the non-pro is not an important part of their business. I suspect if I were to think about like the open riders who I know, there's definitely those who like the non-pro is the essential part of their business. I think the vast majority right now, they're trying to live in both worlds. And maybe that's not the right business model. I don't know. I don't know, but I hadn't considered it. But then when something like that comes out and you're like, okay, because obviously like my goal is to have a win-win-win for everybody. Everybody wins. And that's not always achievable, but it's worth trying for. So if all of a sudden, like I feel like we've helped over the years, we've helped the open riders in a lot of different ways. There was a decision that and it was like, wow, this isn't helping me. Thank you for the feedback. I think about it. So I'm just trying to understand it better.
Well, and my remarks are basically, they're basically aimed at the trainer who has a foot in both camps.
Yeah.
He's not, or she is not just a limited age event open rider, but they're also a coach and a trainer of the weekend horse. So that's where my remarks are headed. I mean, you've got two folds, and there's not a whole lot of trainers that you could name within Canada that are strictly isolated to limited age event horses.
Yeah. Well, we pushed the 8 big age classes into our fall show for the Future Nova. We sometimes refer to it as the Supernova. We had our Jack Carter Open, and then we paid out to our 3-year-olds through the TXRS and our regular Futurity NRHA classes, and we also then paid out our 4-year-olds at that show. So we paid out a lot of money from that show. I think the Canadian dollars checks, it was around $75,000 in checks that as the time of this recording, the checks are in the mail for people, and hopefully by the time they watch this, they've already landed and that. But no, it was a big deal, like for what we accomplished this year. And in a future episode, I will come up with all of the different numbers of all of everything that happened here in 24. But as we celebrate that, there are so many things that we've learned, and the scale and the size and the support, running 3 shows versus running 1 show or 2 shows or whatever it is. There's so much to learn. But those ideas, those concepts can come up in other interviews or other episodes that we'll record. We've already had a really nice long conversation today. So I hope that the people are really enjoying getting back to the exhibition podcast here, Ron. And I know I've enjoyed here. I want to tell you about a few other things, just kind of, we continued to build our relationship with Acera Insurance, and that partnership is going to be very important to us moving forward. So when people are out there who, and you created that conversation with Mike and
Mike King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, everybody needs insurance. They are also very closely affiliated with the Alberta Equine Federation. So they were guests at the show, and that'll probably be another episode because that was just awesome. It was so fun.
Right.
Yeah. And so they're excited about the Western performance horse industry. So we're so thankful for how that's starting to go. We kind of went crazy, Ron. Nadine, who is Dave's assistant there at Claire's home, she was running the Canadian Championship for the breakaway roping, and so we went and we provided video for her. And I say we, Mark and Eric were there. They did it. We'd never done it before. We had no idea what we're doing. The boys knocked it out of the park. The people who watched the live stream, I think they loved it. And so that's opening up.
Nadine put on a great show for us to be able to video. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if I've raved about her enough on the podcast, but that'll continue to happen. And then following that, then before our final event of the year, Randy McCook runs her Canadian Snaffle Bit Futurity, and then Chad Thompson. Do you know Chad? So
yeah, I do.
Yeah, so he put on a Futurity team roping single day event. It was just the Thursday before Randy's show, went then Friday to Sunday, and he had contacted us way early in the year, and Dave Horse showed them. He didn't know what team roping was, so we went and did that. You were there announcing. That was so much fun. I loved it, and again, the feedback was really positive.
That was a very unique event. Good to see it. There was a lot of reasons why it wasn't bigger, but Chad took that risk to have it. And after your crew had practiced at the breakaway roping, I think you nailed the heading and the heeling. Nailed the team roping deal, and it's amazing, a whole different speed.
Yeah.
I think things go at a whole different speed. So different than announcing. I joked partway through the thing. I'd never done a futurity. I announced a team roping futurity. And I said, well, next time I'm quoting this by the word. But because when you're going, you're going.
Yeah.
And but it was a very unique and very good event.
I mean, I loved it. And so I look forward to, hopefully there's going to be opportunity for us through Exhibition TV and that Exhibition Media work to continue down that path. Something else that's coming down the pipeline, Ron, is as we've started conversations with the Calgary Stampede. And there's two parts to that, because the plans right now, and there's another meeting coming up today, being over recording on Tuesday, November 12th. Got a third meeting now on Friday. And so Robert Wise is the fellow who I've been communicating with there, and you rave about him like he's doing such a great job. Came over from Spruce Meadows, I believe. And anyways, so the plan is the exhibition will run on the Stampede grounds next year. But they are very interested. They would like to see reining be a part of the showcase that is the Calgary Stampede. So there's details to work out, and I'm really hopeful that 2025 it's possible. It still is possible as of right now, but as you know, Ron, because you live that Calgary Stampede experience, trying to bring something new and make a change. Not as easy as like, hey, let's just do it, right?
Yep.
But that conversation has started, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
Well, that is exciting. If you recall back, you look in our historical podcast, at one point, I can't remember when it was, whether it might have been in 2022. Mm-hmm. I threw that challenge out, and I said...
you were right.
I said the reining community should be lobbying to be a part of the Calgary Stampede.
Yeah.
Because there's an opportunity, there's a fit, if you will. And this is exciting. So the exhibition would run at its usual time towards the end of July-ish?
Yeah, the idea right now, the calendar dates that we have held is the weekend that is traditionally the Calgary Stampede, or the Calgary Stampede. It's on the brain. That is the exhibition.
Yes.
It runs through the long weekend, and we start the week before going into it.
Yep.
And if you look at like some of the other major shows that happen, like often they run Saturday to Saturday.
Yep.
And so that's what we've got held on the calendar. That also helps out Montana a little bit too, because they're running their Big Sky Classic. It runs into conflict with the Run for a Million. But based on the way that the Run for a Million should fall as far as their schedule and stuff. Our show won't prevent anybody from going down to the Run for a Million who's qualified or just wants to be a part of the event, whatever it is. So yeah, I want to say it's the 2nd to the 8th. Can't remember the exact dates, but it's the Saturday of the long weekend through to the following Saturday of the next weekend. And we'll start off with some novice horse classes, some schooling classes, start off with our green and rookies, some of the qualifiers. And then as we move into the weekend, then the showcase is the Friday and the Saturday night where we do our saddle shootouts and we do our big age classes and stuff. So really we're going to be following the model that's been set up for us as far as those bigger shows south of the border. Yeah, I didn't realize how set up that facility is to run the show the way that we need to, because with our 2 arena system and then the outdoor pen that we have in Claresholm, that's amazing. The limitation that we run into in Claresholm based on the size of show that we run, not enough stalls, not enough accommodation. The community has a little bit of a hard time managing the scale of the show that we want. And it puts a lot of pressure on Dave and his team there at the Agriplex when we try, and obviously on us too. The Nutrient building and the Stampede grounds, like they're set up to do this. Do you appreciate that? Like,
Yeah. Are they? Well, I'm thinking at this point, you'll have, because of the proximity to Stampede timing, the 10-day celebration, you'll still have access to the warm-up tent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking about the Northern Lights?
Yes, Northern Lights. I call it the tent.
Yeah.
So you've got the tent.
Got the tent.
And the only unknown is the dirt in the west end of the Nutrient.
Right.
So
they're telling me like that's a 100 by 200 like full arena.
Oh yeah.
So that can be a show arena. If the weather's phenomenal and we want to be outside, then the Northern Lights can be the show arena. But there's an opportunity if the numbers show up and then we get the support that we need, that we can be showing in 2 arenas there, still having a warm-up facility, unlimited stalls, loads of places to camp, hotels coming out. Is it going to cost more money? Of course it is. But this is going to be an experience. So we need people to put this on their calendar and to get excited. Can't wait. So that conversation is great. I want to throw out a name because we exhibition everything. I don't think I've told you this yet. How many times have you been asked, Ron? Like I've been asked a million times, like, when are you going to do a multidiscipline show?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I've heard this, yes.
I've never felt like we're ready to do it, and we're still not. I can tell you.
Don't panic, folks. Don't panic out there.
We are not. But sometimes you just need that seed so that you can start to see the vision. And so, like, there was a fellow this year who really was working hard to try and create something in the cutting world this past year that didn't end up happening, but I'm starting to wrap my head around. Like, one thing I will comment right now is that, like, I want people in the cutting world to love showing at the Claresholm Agriplex as much as the Rainers have. And right now, that's just not true.
No.
For a variety of reasons. And to me, there's no reason for that. And I want part of our work is to change that culture. Because I think done right, like that is a phenomenal place to show a horse. And so we just need to figure out, like, what do people actually need in the cutting world to love it, and we'll make it happen. So anyways, that's a whole nother side of the conversation. I'm distracted. You want to hear the word.
I'm ready.
The name.
So we have a name. When we make it happen, the seed has been planted, Exhibition Supreme. That is the brand of a show that brings back what was the Canadian Supreme. So
cool. That would work now.
Yeah.
That would work. There was we could need the explosion.
Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, for people that are listening to this, and maybe they've attended something in the Nutrient Center, maybe they haven't on Stampede Park. That facility, that building, that performance surface with the bulls seating and the accessibility from both ends and the center, that's an internationally acclaimed structure.
Yeah.
That's a building.
Yeah.
It really is. There was a lot of design went in that goes unnoticed.
Yeah.
But when you hear the international comments from judges, competitors that come to utilize that facility and comment on that building,
Yeah.
It's a pretty fancy building.
And there's challenges to utilizing it. I know like it's come up in conversation, like how do we do reining there? How do we do reining there? And we're just going to solve the problems, Ron. And that's where like Robert Wise, like I just have thoroughly enjoyed the conversations that I've had with them, and Brett Warder too, because they're both they've sat in together on the first meeting, and we've been having conversations with Brett for several years now because we go there and we work at the Calgary Stampede when you put on the cutting, and of course you're there announcing, and then the last year they had the cow horse come and do their showcase day and all of that. So we're familiar with the people there and how the building runs and stuff. So I hear from people like, hey, I don't want to take our horses downtown. Well, it's not the best. I don't haul horses around. So, but you got Calgary Stampede. Aren't there a lot of horse trailers that show up and get it done?
There, and appreciating that when you have a standalone show, access to Stampede Park is easy.
Easy. Yeah.
Yes, you have to navigate the city of Calgary.
Yeah.
But the trade-off is you want to go downtown? And I mean, quote unquote, downtown. That's downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, that's uptown.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to pay some price. But once you're there, you have a long list of things that you said that sometimes are taxed in Claresholm.
Yeah.
And the amenities.
I'm going to cycle back to when we were talking about the stakes, and it's kind of that great vision. Like, Calgary Stampede is proof that big things can happen in the equine industry in Western Canada right here in the city of Calgary. And so right now it only happens over 10 days. So if we can grow and create something that is exciting as some of the other big shows that we see happening in Vegas or in Scottsdale or obviously in Oklahoma or Fort Worth or whatever it is. And I can tell you that the message to me is, if that's possible, the Calgary Stampede as a board, as a company, as a community, whatever it is, they want to help us. And part of it, I can tell you that Robert said to me, he says, would you be willing to run a multidiscipline show? And it's like,
yeah,
sure. We're just not ready yet, but we're going to go there. And we now have a name, Exhibition Supreme. So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, we're getting there. And so that's all possible because the reining community has told us, you guys can run a horse show, right? Like, we remember when my mom said, Dave, what makes you think you can run a horse show? I don't know, but it turns out we can. And so now it's a matter of sort of that. So big visions. Hey,
well,
future.
And just to add to that too, another reason why we are actually pretty close to able to run a multidiscipline show are the great additions of people like Pearl Abley and Shauna Husted, who bring in all kinds of skills that we didn't grow up with. Yeah. But they have and have been fantastic additions to the team. So we're actually quite a bit closer than maybe it sounds like.
We needed some horsey people around. We are not horsey people enough.
You needed some in-house staff.
Yeah.
That could answer day-to-day questions.
Yeah. And others too who help us.
Or more likely, if they didn't know the answers or felt comfortable about the answers, they could reach out immediately to the right people.
Yeah. No, it's very true. And obviously you fulfilled that role. You're the original horsey guy who has, educated us on still probably 90+% of everything that we know.
Far too much opinion and not too much knowledge.
Well, there was a time when you were like at 99%, Ron, but your influence over me anyways is going down. I'm sorry to tell you, but I still value every moment. Hey, future episode coming up. I've messaged with him again, Dean Latimer, as soon as possible. And I believe now is the time. So let's get our calendar out when we hit stop on our recording here, and let's figure out a time to get Dean Latimer on there. And for anyone listening to this, we would like to interview the people who are the managers of the various stallion stations. I would like to have someone come on and just tell us about what is happening, because I think in order to grow the success of our stakes program, really need to understand better a pillar within the industry, which has become these stallion stations. Right. So I'd love to have at least one, but multiple, any stallion station managers who want to come on and talk to us about what they're doing. Hopefully it results in some promotion for them, but it's an educational opportunity. So.
Yeah. Oh, exciting.
Yeah,
You got a lot of things on the list, dude.
a lot of shit going on, Ron.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, it is too.
Well, is there anything else that we didn't cover in this?
No, we have to stop pretty soon because I'm almost out of breath.
Well, I mean, we did touch on hockey a little bit, and we also talked about, like Dave mentioned, and I mentioned as well, Shauna Husted, he mentioned Shauna Supergia. There's another Shauna that has the hockey tie-in because Shauna Reinhart, her son Cole, has been playing up with the Ottawa Senators in the show. He's got a few games. Maybe not as big as accomplishment as his sister Emma, who, proud mother of Princess Charlie there out there. But I'm wishing Shauna Reinhart a wonderful retirement from her job as the admin for the ACHA. So there's probably a whole bunch of other Shaunas that are phenomenal in the cow and cutting and reining world that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But
well, that's a pretty good shout out to Cole and Shauna. Of course, Cole in a preseason, he had a 4-point night.
Nice.
Playing in the big leagues and
got himself a few more games in the big leagues.
He did.
We're looking to see a few more this year.
Well, it's kind of optimistic. I was sitting in Doug's coffee room here a week ago and got a little insight into what's going on. And Doug, boy, he's patient. He's, he just goes along. He says, well, he's still there. Like he never goes overboard, doesn't get over the top. So.
Hey, well, before you sign us out too, like I'm going to talk over to Eric there and be at the back. So, I mean, we don't even really have to cut out very much of what Ron said here, do we?
I don't think we have to cut anything.
I mean, see, people listening don't know the things that Ron sometimes says that we cut out. But in this history, I'm going to tell you, I think we hit start on the record, and my goodness, you behaved yourself very well today, Ron.
Clap, clap, clap.
Just kind of, I'm starting to mature.
Well, when you start this second half of your career now.
Hey, isn't it the truth? Isn't it the truth? And there's no switch on the microphone, so I can't shut it off when I want to say something.
No, I have control over you.
Yeah, you do. You do. Well, that was pretty exciting, boys.
Yeah.
That's
well, hey,
good.
Ron, thank you for coming and catching us up. Because, a lot of the people listening were a part of the different things that we talked about. But I feel like, I'm a guy who, like I live in the present and I dream in the future. In the past, I don't really spend a lot of time there. I think you know that about me. But I felt like we needed this episode to bring us back. And now here we are. What's possible next?
Well, thanks very much for the invitation. It's good to be back. The first half, I kind of closed up my reigning chapter and maybe have to reopen it, huh? Oh. But anyway, good to be here.
All right. Well, do you have anything you want to say to anyone out there in podcast land?
Well, I guess, Losey, what we better do, just tell them. Looks like the podcast world is coming back alive, the video cast.
Yeah, they have to do more than just your catchphrase.
Yeah.
But you can.
Should I get?
Use the same one or a new one? It's your call.
Now, I'll tell you what. Everybody out there has got two choices. Two choices. You can keep listening, or you can watch and listen. See you down the road.